Take a deep breath and let the weight of your body settle into the soft, welcoming embrace of your bed, feeling the tension evaporate like mist in the morning sun. Allow your mind to drift away from the constraints of the day, finding a quiet space where the air is cool and the rhythm of your heart is the only clock that matters. As we begin this journey, we find ourselves standing in the cool, dappled shadows of an Australian temperate rainforest where the air smells of damp earth and ancient ferns. Here, amidst the towering eucalyptus trees, we encounter one of the most sophisticated artists in the natural world, the satin bowerbird, known to science as Pylorhynchus violatius. This bird, roughly 30 centimeters in length, does not merely survive, he creates. While other creatures focus solely on the brutal necessities of the wild, the satin bowerbird spends months meticulously constructing a stage, a bower, that is a masterpiece of avian architecture. Unlike a nest, which is built for the practical purpose of housing eggs, a bower is a purely aesthetic structure, a monument to the power of beauty and the slow, deliberate work of evolution. Consider the physical form of the male satin bowerbird as he moves through the understory. His plumage is a deep, iridescent obsidian that, in certain angles of light, glows with an intense violet-blue sheen. This coloration is not caused by blue pigments, which are incredibly rare in the bird world, but by the structural properties of his feathers. The microscopic layers of his feathers are arranged in such a way that they reflect shorter wavelengths of light, creating a shimmering effect that mimics the depth of a twilight sky. In the quiet of the forest, his eyes are perhaps his most striking feature, a brilliant, piercing lilac blue, a color so vivid it seems almost artificial. These eyes possess tetrachromatic vision, meaning he can see into the ultraviolet spectrum, perceiving a world of color and detail that is entirely invisible to the human eye. The centerpiece of his life is the avenue bower. To build this, the bird gathers hundreds of thin, straight twigs, usually from tea trees or other local shrubs, and plants them upright in the soil. He creates two parallel walls, about 20 to 30 centimeters high, that curve slightly inward at the top to form a vaulted corridor. The orientation of this avenue is rarely random. Research has shown that many bowerbirds align their structures on a north-south axis. This alignment may serve to optimize the lighting conditions during his display, ensuring that the sun's rays catch his iridescent feathers at the perfect angle to dazzle any visiting female. As you imagine this bird working, see his beak, sturdy and precise, placing each twig with the care of a diamond setter, adjusting the angle by a fraction of a millimeter until the symmetry is absolute. Once the walls are erected, the satin bowerbird begins the decoration phase, and it is here that his obsession with a specific frequency of light becomes clear. He has a profound, almost hypnotic preference for the color blue. On the cleared court in front of his bower, he will arrange an assortment of treasures: the blue tail feathers of a crimson rosella, blue wildflowers like the lobelia, and in the modern era, blue plastic bottle caps, straws, or fragments of glass. In a single bower, researchers have counted over 100 individual blue items, each one selected for its specific hue and texture. He does not just scatter them, he curates them. If a human were to move one of these items while the bird was away, he would return and immediately move it back to its precise location, maintaining the geometric integrity of his vision. There is a tactile quality to this collection. Imagine the smooth, cold surface of a piece of blue glass resting against the rough, organic texture of a dried seed pod. The bird often paints the inner walls of his bower using a mixture of saliva and masticated charcoal or crushed blueberries. He uses a piece of bark held in his beak as a rudimentary tool, a brush, to apply this pigment. This behavior is one of the few recorded instances of tool use in the animal kingdom, placing the bowerbird in an elite group of cognitively advanced species. His brain-to-body mass ratio is significantly higher than that of most other passerine birds, a testament to the mental processing power required to manage such complex spatial and aesthetic tasks. In the great bowerbird, a close relative known as Chlamydera nuchalis, this artistry takes an even more cerebral turn. The great bowerbird creates an optical illusion known as forced perspective. He paves his display court with gray and white stones, shells, and bones, but he does not place them randomly. He arranges them in a gradient, with the smaller items closer to the bower entrance and the larger items further away. To an observer standing within the bower, this creates the illusion that all the objects are the same size, making the court appear uniform and the bird himself appear larger and more imposing. This is a level of geometric sophistication that humans did not formalize in art until the Renaissance. Yet this bird, weighing barely 200 grams, performs it instinctively in the heart of the scrubland. The sounds of the bower are as curated as the visuals. The satin bowerbird is a master of mimicry, with vocalizations that comprise up to 80% of his repertoire. He does not merely sing, he records the world around him. In the stillness of the afternoon, you might hear him perfectly replicate the mechanical whir of a camera shutter, the sharp crack of a breaking branch, or the haunting cry of a green catbird. His own mechanical calls are a series of wheezes, chortles, and rhythmic buzzing sounds that can reach intensities of 70 to 80 decibels. These sounds are not just noise, they are vibrations that travel through the humid air, settling into the mossy ground, signaling his presence to the forest. As you lie there, imagine the temperature of the rainforest floor, a cool, consistent 18 degrees Celsius, shielded from the sun by a canopy of leaves that have existed in various forms for over 50 million years. The bowerbirds belong to an ancient lineage that diverged from other songbirds during the Miocene epoch. They have been practicing this dance, this construction, for millions of cycles of the sun. There is a profound peace in the repetition of this history. Every year, for a lifespan that can reach 20 to 30 years in the wild, the male returns to his site. He spends hours every day maintaining his theater, flicking away dead leaves, polishing his stones, and waiting. The patience of the bowerbird is a cosmic lesson in stillness. He may wait for days in total silence, perched on a low branch, his lilac eyes scanning the shadows. When a female finally arrives, the dance begins. This is not a frantic movement, but a series of highly choreographed gestures. He fluffs his feathers, making himself appear like a rounded orb of midnight silk. He picks up his most prized blue object, perhaps a rare sapphire-colored berry, and holds it out, his head weaving in a rhythmic serpentine motion. He utters a low, rhythmic skr sound, a vibration so deep you can almost feel it in your own chest, a resonance that matches the hum of the earth itself. The female's role is one of quiet observation. She enters the avenue of twigs, her plumage a subtle camouflaging olive green with scalloped patterns on her breast. From within the safety of the twig walls, she watches the male's performance. The bower acts as a protective barrier, allowing her to assess his fitness and the quality of his gallery without the threat of physical intimidation. This is a world of consent and aesthetic judgment. If the bower is not symmetrical, if the blue is not vibrant enough, or if the forced perspective is flawed, she will simply fly away, leaving him to refine his craft for the next visitor. Consider the energy required for this life. The satin bowerbird is primarily frugivorous, with fruit making up about 80% of his diet. He wanders through the canopy eating the fruits of the Elaeocarpus and ficus trees, dispersing their seeds across the forest floor. In this way, the artist is also the gardener, the architect of the very forest that provides his materials. The relationship is circular, a closed loop of growth and creation. The twigs he uses for his walls will eventually decay, returning nitrogen to the soil to feed the next generation of trees, which will, in turn, provide twigs for his descendants. The silence of the forest is never truly empty. It is a dense, textured quiet. It is the sound of a single leaf spiraling down to touch the forest floor, the sound of the bird's claws clicking softly against a smooth river stone. As you sink deeper into your bed, imagine your own space as a bower, a place of curated comfort, a sanctuary built of soft fabrics and cool air. You are safe within these walls, much like the female bowerbird within the avenue of twigs. The outside world with its chaos and noise is far away, invisible beyond the dense greenery of your thoughts. The male satin bowerbird takes 7 years to reach his full iridescent adult plumage. For the first several years of his life, he looks like a female, practicing his building skills in practice bowers, away from the established territories of the older males. This long period of adolescence is rare in the bird world and suggests that the art of the bower is not just instinct, but a learned skill, passed down through observation and trial. He is a student of beauty long before he is a master of it. He watches the elders, noting which shades of blue are most effective, which rhythmic sequences of song hold the most power. Think of the vast timescales involved in this evolution. The bowerbird's ancestors were once simple nest builders, but over millions of years, the drive for display pushed the nest away from the eggs and turned it into a stage. This separation of home and art is a unique evolutionary path. It mirrors the human journey, the way we moved from simple shelters to cathedrals and galleries. There is a comforting continuity in this, the realization that the drive to create, to organize the world into something beautiful and symmetrical, is a fundamental pulse of life on this planet. As the light in the rainforest begins to fade, turning the vibrant greens to deep charcoals and the blues of the bower to shadows, the bird settles. His work for the day is done. He has adjusted every twig. He has polished his blue glass. He has sung the songs of the forest. He perches in the crook of a fern tree, his lilac eyes closing, his heartbeat slowing to a steady, resting rhythm. The forest around him breathes, the trees exhaling oxygen into the cool night air, the earth radiating the heat it gathered during the day. You too are part of this rhythm. Like the bird in his forest, you have found your place of rest. The symmetry of your breath matches the symmetry of the bower, a perfect balance of inhale and exhale, a slow dance of existence that requires nothing more from you than to simply be. Feel the cool air on your skin, the texture of the sheets, and the profound, silent beauty of the world as it drifts into the dark. We are only at the beginning of our journey through this forest, and there is so much more to see, so many more textures to touch, and so much more silence to share. For now, just listen to the quiet and let the image of the blue bower fade into the soft velvet blackness of sleep. As your awareness settles further into the roots of the world, notice how the stillness of the room mirrors the ancient, undisturbed quiet of a New Guinea highland forest. We are moving backward through the corridors of time now, exploring how the human mind first began to grapple with the mystery of the bowerbird's art. In the year 1826, a French naturalist named René Primevère-Lesson became the first European to provide a scientific account of these birds during his voyage on the ship Coquille. When he first encountered the structures of the satin bowerbird, known formally as Tylonorhynchus violaceus, he was utterly perplexed. The precision of the twig walls and the curated collections of shells and berries did not align with any known animal behavior of the era. At first, Lesson and other early explorers entertained the idea that these were not the work of birds at all, but rather small playhouses built by indigenous mothers for their children, or perhaps elaborate nests constructed by a species of kangaroo. This historical confusion speaks to the extraordinary nature of the bird's intellect. It wasn't until the 1840s, when the renowned ornithologist John Gould published his monumental work, The Birds of Australia, that the scientific community began to accept the bower as a site of courtship rather than a nursery. Gould observed that the birds would return to these sites year after year, sometimes for decades. This brings us to a compelling realization about the bowerbird's life. These creatures are among the longest-lived passerines in the world. A male satin bowerbird may live for 25 to 30 years, spending nearly a quarter of a century refining a single location. Picture this bird as a silent sentinel of the forest, a living archive of the seasons, watching the canopy change while he meticulously polishes his collection of azure treasures. The way we understand the dance of the bowerbird shifted fundamentally in 1871 with the publication of Charles Darwin's The Descent of Man and Selection in relation to sex. Darwin was captivated by the bowerbird, using it as a primary line of evidence for his theory of sexual selection. He argued that the birds possessed a genuine aesthetic sense, a capacity to appreciate beauty for its own sake. To Darwin, the bower was not an accident of biology, but a deliberate display of cognitive prowess. Think of the bower as a terrestrial orrery, a mechanical model of the bird's internal world, where every stone and feather is placed to influence the gravity of a female's attention. This was a radical departure from the Victorian view of animals as mere automatons. It suggested a level of consciousness that felt almost hauntingly human. As you breathe in the cool air of your own sanctuary, consider the sheer scale of some of these structures. While the satin bowerbird builds a modest avenue, the McGregor's bowerbird, or Ambliornis macgregorii, creates what is known as a maypole bower. These structures can reach heights of over 2 meters, consisting of a central column of sticks woven around the trunk of a sapling. At the base, the bird cleans a circular area of all debris and carpets it with a thick, velvety layer of moss. Imagine the tactile sensation of that moss, soft, damp, and resilient, laid out like a green silk rug in the middle of the wilderness. This bird, weighing only about 100 grams, manages to manipulate materials 20 times his own height, a feat of engineering that requires a sophisticated understanding of structural balance and leverage. In 1956, an American ornithologist named E. Thomas Gilliard proposed a concept that would change our understanding of avian evolution, the transfer effect. Gilliard noticed a pattern across the various species of the family Meticulonorhynchidae. He observed that the species with the most drab, inconspicuous plumage, like the Vogelkopf bowerbird Ambliornis inornata, built the most complex and spectacular bowers. Conversely, birds with brilliant, colorful feathers tended to build simpler structures. It is as if the evolutionary energy for beauty was transferred from the bird's body onto the forest floor. The bird becomes the architect of his own attractiveness, choosing to invest in external art rather than internal pigments. This suggests that the bower is an extension of the self, a physical manifestation of the bird's genetic health and mental clarity. Deep within the brain of the bowerbird, Physical changes reflect this architectural demand. Neurobiological studies have revealed that bower-building species have a hippocampus, the region of the brain associated with spatial memory and navigation, that is approximately 15% larger than that of closely related bird species that do not build bowers. This specialized brain allows the bird to remember the exact location of hundreds of different ornaments and to navigate a complex territory to find rare items. What's happening now, as the bird searches the forest, is a high-level cognitive mapping. He is not just wandering. He is searching for a specific shade of blue or a specific texture of bone, holding a mental image of his masterpiece in his mind and seeking the missing piece of the puzzle. The year 1882 marked another milestone when the golden bowerbird, Prionodura newtoniana, was first described. This bird, the smallest of the bowerbirds, builds some of the largest structures, sometimes bridging two separate trees with a massive wall of sticks, decorated with lichen and seed pods. The variety of styles across the 20 recognized species of bowerbirds is a testament to the diverse ways nature solves the problem of attraction. Some species, like Archbold's bowerbird, Archboldia papuensis, decorate their courts with the discarded shells of land snails, creating a pale pearlescent floor that catches the dim light of the New Guinea understory. Imagine the sound of those shells clicking together as the bird moves them, a dry, hollow percussion that punctuates the silence of the high-altitude moss forests. Scientists like Joa Madden, in research published around 2001, discovered that there is a direct correlation between the complexity of a bird's bower and its overall cognitive performance. Birds that built more symmetrical bowers were found to be better at problem-solving tasks in controlled environments. This tells us that the bower is an honest signal. It is impossible to fake. A male who is sick, tired, or cognitively impaired cannot maintain the strict geometric standards required. The bower is a transparency of his health. As you lie in the quiet, feel the honesty of your own body's need for rest. Just as the bird's bower reflects his vitality, your ability to sink into sleep reflects your body's deep instinctive wisdom. Consider the visual world of these birds through the lens of modern science. We now know that bowerbirds possess tetrachromatic vision, meaning they have a fourth type of cone cell in their eyes that allows them to see ultraviolet, UV, light. Many of the blue objects they collect, such as certain berries or plastic fragments, reflect high levels of UV light that are invisible to us. To a bowerbird, a display court isn't just a collection of blue. It is a glowing neon landscape of ultraviolet patterns. The bower becomes a beacon in the darkness, a shimmering field of energy that calls out through the trees. In the 1980s, researcher Gerald Borgia proposed the threat reduction theory, suggesting that the bower's walls provide a safe space for the female, allowing her to watch the male's intense UV-lit display without feeling physically threatened. This creates a space of calm observation, much like the space you are in now. The history of the bowerbird is also a history of materials. Before the arrival of humans in their habitats, the satin bowerbird relied on blue flowers like the lobelia or the fallen feathers of the crimson rosella. However, they are opportunistic artists. In the last century, they have integrated human artifacts into their work. A single bower can contain over 500 individual items, ranging from blue ballpoint pens to laundry detergent caps. There is a strange, quiet beauty in this integration, the way the natural world slowly absorbs the remnants of our lives, turning our discarded plastic into a component of an ancient ritual. The bird does not see trash. He sees a specific frequency of light, a tool for his dance. Visualize the bird now, in the late afternoon, as the sun begins to dip below the horizon. The temperature in the Australian scrub drops, and the humidity rises, carrying the scent of eucalyptus and dry grass. The bird makes one final adjustment to a piece of blue glass, tilting it slightly to catch the last rays of the sun. This movement is part of a cycle that has continued since the Miocene epoch, millions of years ago. The bowerbird has outlasted civilizations, its dance remaining constant while the world around it shifted. This continuity is a source of profound peace. The laws of physics, the requirements of biology, and the drive for beauty are all working in harmony, as they always have. As you continue to drift, let the historical weight of this knowledge settle over you like a heavy, warm blanket. You are not just a person trying to sleep. You are a participant in a vast biological history that spans millions of years. The same forces that guide the bowerbird's beak as he places a twig are the forces that guide your breath as it slows and deepens. You are resting in the comforting void, the same productive silence that the bowerbird inhabits during the long hours of his watch. The forest is quiet now. The collectors have finished their work, and the galleries of the forest floor are closed for the night. There is nothing left to build, nothing left to arrange. The symmetry is complete. The colors have faded into a restful gray, and the ultraviolet glow has softened into the deep indigo peace of the approaching night. You are safe in the architecture of your own rest, a structure as ancient and well-crafted as the finest bower in the world. Imagine the sensation of weightlessness, as if the gravity of the earth has gently loosened its grip, allowing you to float like a single feather suspended in a shaft of late afternoon light. As we submerge further into the quiet mechanics of the forest, consider the physical presence of the satin bowerbird, Ptilionorhynchus violaceus. To hold one of these birds in your hand would be to hold a weight almost exactly equal to a large, crisp apple, roughly 170 to 290 grams of living, breathing artistry. Their wingspan, stretching between 45 and 50 centimeters, is nearly the same width as a standard kitchen tray, a compact and efficient design for navigating the dense, tangled understory of the Australian bush. At this very moment, deep within the shadows of the canopy, a different kind of artist is at work. The tooth-billed bowerbird, or Cenopoetes dentirostris, approaches his craft with a minimalist's eye. Unlike his cousins who build towering walls, he creates a circus, a cleared stage on the forest floor that can measure 2 to 3 meters in diameter. He uses his uniquely serrated beak, which features small tooth-like notches along the edges, to saw through the stems of large succulent leaves. He then lays these leaves across his stage, but always with a specific orientation. He turns them upside down. By exposing the paler, silvery underside of the leaf, he creates a stark visual contrast against the dark, damp earth. It is much like a dealer laying out a deck of cards, ensuring each one is face down to create a uniform, shimmering field of muted color. Observe the meticulous nature of the bower's maintenance. A male bowerbird may spend between 50 and 70% of his daylight hours perched near his creation, acting as a vigilant curator. This isn't just about pride. It is about the complex social politics of the forest. In the bowerbird world, theft is a common occurrence. Scientists have observed that up to 10 or 15% of a male's decorations may be stolen by neighboring rivals. Think of it like a neighborhood where homeowners might sneak into a neighbor's yard to borrow a garden gnome or a specific flower, only to have it stolen back the next day. This constant movement of objects creates a slow, rhythmic migration of blue and silver across the forest floor, a game of aesthetic chess that lasts for the duration of the breeding season. What's happening now is a process of chemical creation. Some bowerbirds engage in painting the interior of their structures, a behavior that mirrors the early human discovery of ink. The bird takes a piece of charcoal, perhaps from a site where a lightning strike once touched a tree, and chews it into a fine paste, mixing it with his own saliva. This mixture acts as a carbon-based pigment. Using a small wad of bark or leaves as a primitive sponge, he applies this dark paint to the upright twigs of his bower. This isn't just for color. The saliva provides a protein-based binder that helps the pigment adhere to the wood, much like the way egg tempera was used by Renaissance painters to stabilize their masterpieces. The bird's focus on the texture of his walls is absolute, ensuring the canvas of his bower is prepared for the arrival of a visitor. Wandering further into the velvet quiet of the scrub, we find the western bowerbird, known as Chlamydra guttata. This species possesses a different palette entirely. Eschewing the blue favored by the satin bowerbird, the western bowerbird prefers a combination of white and green. He often collects the small round berries of the Solanum genus, the same family that includes tomatoes and nightshade. He arranges these green spheres alongside bleached white snail shells and fragments of bone. This preference for white is highly strategic. The bower is often built beneath a thick canopy that filters out as much as 90% of direct sunlight. In this dim, emerald-tinted environment, white objects reflect the most available light, acting as small glowing lanterns that guide a female through the gloom. The dance itself is a masterclass in the physics of motion and sound. When a female approaches, the male begins a sequence of vocalizations that occur in a specific frequency range, typically between 1 and 3 kilohertz. This frequency is low enough to penetrate through the thick foliage without being overly muffled by the humidity of the air. As he sings, he performs a series of puffs. By manipulating the small muscles at the base of his feathers, the erector pili, he can increase his perceived body volume by 20 to 30% in a matter of seconds. He becomes a rounded, vibrating orb of color. It is a transformation that mimics the way a celestial body might appear to expand as it moves closer to an observer, a slow-motion pulse of life and energy. Consider the timescale of this commitment. Once a female has inspected the bower and the dance is complete, the cycle of life shifts to a different location. The female builds her nest quite far from the display site, usually between 200 and 500 meters away. This distance ensures that the activity at the nest, where she will incubate her eggs for 19 to 24 days, does not draw the attention of predators to the male's highly visible bower. The bower is a place of public art. The nest is a place of private sanctuary. This separation of spheres is a sophisticated strategy for survival, a way of balancing the need for brilliance with the need for safety. Deep within the microscopic structure of the bowerbird's eye, the world is far more vivid than we can imagine. Because they are tetrachromatic, they possess a fourth cone cell sensitive to the ultraviolet spectrum. When a satin bowerbird picks up a blue plastic cap, something that might seem like common litter to us, he is actually seeing a high-intensity ultraviolet glow that we are physically incapable of perceiving. During his peak renovation periods, a male has been seen adjusting or adding more than 20 items per hour. Each item is placed with an understanding of how it will catch the light, creating a visual field that is both a physical structure and a broadcast of electromagnetic energy. Picture the forced perspective of the great bowerbird once more, but look closer at the measurements. The display court is often a perfect rectangle or oval, approximately 60 centimeters in length. The gradient of the stones is so precise that the bird must evaluate the size of each pebble to within a few millimeters. If he places a large stone where a small one should be, the illusion of depth is broken. It is a calculation of geometry performed without numbers, a felt sense of proportion that is baked into his DNA. This ability to manipulate the perception of another creature is one of the most advanced cognitive traits in the animal kingdom, placing the bowerbird in the same psychological category as humans and some primates. The air in the forest is cooling now, and the humidity acts as a conductor for the subtle sounds of the evening. Notice how the bird uses frass, the fine sawdust-like droppings of wood-boring insects, to add a specific texture to the floor of his court. The frass absorbs moisture, creating a soft, damp cushion that dampens the sound of his movements, making his dance appear even more ghost-like and fluid. In this environment, every sensation is heightened. The smell of decaying leaves, the cool dampness of the moss, and the rhythmic clicking of the bird's beak all combine into a singular experience of immersion. As you yield to the stillness of your own environment, think of the bowerbird as a curator of a miniature silent museum where the admission price is simply the act of noticing. The bower is a temporary monument, a fragile intersection of twigs and light that exists for only a few months of the year. Yet, the knowledge of how to build it has been preserved for over 20 million years. This is the transfer effect in its most profound form. The bird's beauty is not just in his feathers, but in his ability to shape the world around him into a reflection of his own internal order. At this very moment, the light in the Australian highlands is shifting from gold to a deep bruised purple. The UV reflective items in the bowers are beginning to glow with a spectral intensity as the visible light fades. The bowerbirds are settling into their roosts, their 200-gram bodies becoming still, their breathing falling into a slow, restorative rhythm. The forest floor is left with the curated remnants of the day, the shells, the berries, the carefully placed twigs. These objects will remain in their precise locations throughout the night, held in place by the same gravity that keeps the stars in their orbits and your body in your bed. The universe is a patient architect, and you are a part of its grand design. The same carbon that the bowerbird uses for his paint is the carbon that makes up your cells. The same physics that govern the frequency of his song govern the electrical impulses of your thoughts. There is a deep structural comfort in this connection. You are not an observer of the world. You are an extension of it. The bower is complete for tonight. The museum is closed. The light has retreated to the furthest reaches of the sky, leaving behind a comforting void that is ready to be filled with the soft, formless textures of your dreams. Permit your thoughts to become like those silver leaves on the forest floor, turned over, quiet, and reflecting only the softest light of the stars. In this space of profound symmetry and peace, there is nothing left to do but rest. As the stillness of the evening deepens, you might find your own thoughts beginning to drift, like the fine silken mist that settles over the Owen Stanley Range in New Guinea. At this very moment, we are expanding our gaze beyond the individual bird to the grand biological tapestry that connects all living things. Scientists discovered that bowerbirds belong to the superfamily Corvoidea, a prestigious lineage they share with some of the most intelligent creatures on the planet, including crows, ravens, and jays. This evolutionary heritage means that the bird you have been visualizing possesses a cognitive depth that mirrors our own. Just as you reflect on the complexities of your day before sliding into rest, the bowerbird exists in a state of high-level social awareness, where every action is a calculated step in a lifelong pursuit of excellence. Consider the word bower itself. which originates from an Old English term meaning a pleasant, shaded place under trees. It is a word that describes a sanctuary, much like the one you are currently creating in your mind. Within the family Meticulonorhynchidae, which comprises 8 distinct genera and approximately 20 different species, the drive to create such sanctuaries is a universal constant. However, the manifestation of this drive varies wildly. While the satin bowerbird is a master of color, the Vogelkopf bowerbird, or Amblyomys inornata, is a master of scale. This bird, native to the remote mountains of Indonesian New Guinea, constructs a hut-like bower that can measure up to 2 meters in width and 1 meter in height. For a bird that is only 25 centimeters long, this is the equivalent of a human building, a structure the size of a 3-story house, entirely by hand, using only the natural materials found within a few dozen meters. Notice how the effort required for such a feat relates to your own capacity for perseverance. The male Vogelkopf bowerbird doesn't just build a shelter. He organizes a massive collection of forest treasures into distinct rooms or piles. He might have one pile for orange fungus, another for charcoal, and yet another for butterfly wings. This level of organization requires a brain that is specialized for more than just survival. Deep within the bowerbird's anatomy, the regions responsible for complex social cognition are significantly more developed than in other avian species. This neurological investment means the bird is a social strategist, a librarian of light and color, who catalogs the resources of his environment with a level of detail that is truly extraordinary. What's happening now is a deep internal shift as the bird enters his long maturation process. For the satin bowerbird, Tilonorhynchus violaceus, the journey to adulthood is a marathon, not a sprint. A young male must wait nearly 7 years before he finally molts into his iconic, iridescent, blue-black plumage. During these 7 years, he is essentially an apprentice. He spends his time in play building, a behavior where juvenile males construct crude practice bowers. They aren't trying to attract a mate yet. They are honing their motor skills and learning the geometry of symmetry. Imagine the patience required to practice a craft for 7 years before the first performance. This long-term perspective is a soothing reminder that all meaningful things take time to grow. Your own body, in this state of rest, is participating in a similar long-term cycle of repair and rejuvenation. At this very moment, scientists have found that the individual identity of these birds can be quite specific. In the wild, researchers can identify individual male satin bowerbirds by the unique complex patterns of their lilac-colored irises. Much like a human fingerprint, no 2 iris patterns are exactly alike. This individuality extends to their artistry. In a 2012 study, researchers discovered that bowerbirds manipulate the size of their gesso, the stones and bones used on the court, based on the specific angle of the entrance to the bower. They aren't just following a template. They are compensating for the perspective of the female as she approaches. It is a form of empathy, a way of seeing the world through another's eyes to ensure the beauty they perceive is perfect. Deep within the forest, the female's experience is one of vast exploration. While the male is tethered to his gallery, the female is a traveler. Studies have shown that a female satin bowerbird may fly up to 4 kilometers in a single day, visiting as many as 6 or 7 different bowers before she makes her final selection. Think of her as a connoisseur of the forest, a critic who evaluates the work of multiple artists. This movement through the trees is a slow, rhythmic journey of observation. She isn't rushed, she is thorough. She listens to the male's chuckle call, a rhythmic vocalization that typically lasts between 1 and 2 seconds, and she evaluates the quality of his paint, often made from the pulp of Dianella berries, which provide a deep natural pigment. The bigger picture here is one of balance. The bowerbird's life is defined by a low reproductive rate and high parental investment. A female will typically lay only 1 to 3 eggs per season, and the incubation period, particularly for species like the regent bowerbird, Suriculus chrysocephalus, lasts roughly 21 days. Because she only has a few chances to pass on her lineage each year, her choice must be precise. This creates an evolutionary pressure that has turned the males into the greatest artists of the animal kingdom. It is a beautiful closed-loop system where the pursuit of beauty ensures the survival of the species. As you rest, consider how the pursuit of peace in your own life serves a similar purpose, providing the foundation upon which everything else is built. What's happening now in the bird's physical world is a marvelous display of physics. The iridescence of the male's feathers reaches its peak ultraviolet reflectance at a wavelength between 350 and 400 nanometers. This is at the very edge of what the physical world can manifest in terms of color. When he flies, he does so at an average speed of 40 to 50 kilometers per hour, a graceful glide through the cool mountain air. But when he is at his bower, he is stationary, a living statue. Male bowerbirds spend up to 9 months of the year maintaining their sight, even when it isn't the breeding season. This dedication to a single point in space is a form of terrestrial anchoring. He is the guardian of his clearing, a role he fulfills with a quiet, steady presence. For the spotted bowerbird, known as Chlamydera maculata, the collection of ornaments can reach staggering numbers. These birds have been recorded gathering over 1,000 individual items for a single display court. Imagine the cognitive load of remembering the placement of 1,000 small bones and glass fragments. Each item is a piece of data, a component of a larger visual symphony. To manage this, the bird uses a specialized saliva that acts as a natural glue, especially in species like the regent bowerbird, which uses its spittle to help bond the twigs of its avenue together. This chemical bond is a testament to the bird's total commitment. He uses his own body to hold his world together. This narrative of the bowerbird is, in many ways, a mirror of our own search for order in a chaotic universe. From their Miocene origins, over 20 million years ago, these birds have refined the art of the comforting void. They clear a space in the wild, messy growth of the rainforest and fill it with intentionality. They create a pocket of symmetry in a world of entropy. As you lie in your bed, you are doing the same. You have cleared away the noise of the external world, creating a mental bower where only the most soothing thoughts are allowed to remain. You are the architect of this moment of peace. The long-term implications of the bowerbird's dance are etched into the very soil of the earth. By selecting for intelligence and aesthetic skill, the female bowerbirds have driven the evolution of a brain that is capable of complex problem-solving and tool use. This is the same evolutionary path that led to human consciousness. When you look at a bowerbird, you are looking at a parallel history of the mind. There is a profound sense of companionship in this, the knowledge that the drive to organize, to decorate, and to appreciate beauty is not a human invention, but a fundamental property of life itself. Picture the forest floor now as a vast natural gallery that has been open for millions of years. The flight of the bowerbird through the canopy, the slow growth of the elaeocarpus trees, and the rhythmic cycle of the seasons are all part of a grand, silent clockwork. Nothing is hurried. The bird does not rush the construction of his bower, and the female does not rush her decision. Everything happens in its own time, according to the slow, steady laws of biology. You can release your hold on the need for speed or productivity. In this space, The only requirement is to exist, to breathe, and to allow the metabolic residue of the day to be cleared from your system by the natural tides of sleep. The air in your room is cool, just like the air beneath a New Guinea fern tree. The weight of your limbs is the weight of a bird resting on a sturdy branch after a long day of flight. You are anchored by the same gravity that keeps the bowerbird stones in place, a gentle force that holds the world in a warm embrace. The 20 million years of bowerbird history are behind you, a vast ocean of time that provides a sense of perspective and calm. Everything that needs to be done has been done. The bower is built, the decorations are set, and the forest is drifting into a deep indigo silence. There is no more need for action, only for observation, and then finally, for the quiet surrender to the void. The dance is over for today, and the gallery is silent. In this silence, you are free to find your own path into the dreamscape, guided by the soft, ultraviolet glow of a world that is perfectly at peace. The air around you has grown viscous and cool, carrying the heavy, sweet scent of crushed eucalyptus and the sharp mineral tang of wet limestone. As we descend into this fifth stage of our journey, we are moving beyond the mere appearance of the bowerbird's world and into the complex molecular why behind these sensory marvels. At this very moment, deep within the Arfak Mountains of West Papua, a Vogelkop bowerbird, Ambliornis inornata, is experiencing a world of sound that is fundamentally different from our own. Scientists discovered that bowerbirds possess a highly specialized syrinx, the avian vocal organ, located at the base of the trachea. This organ is equipped with two independent sets of membranes and muscles, allowing the bird to produce two distinct frequencies simultaneously. When he mimics the sound of a forest stream or the distant rumble of thunder, he is actually harmonizing with himself, creating a three-dimensional soundscape that reaches levels of 50 to 60 decibels. This auditory complexity isn't just a performance, it is a way to fill the dense, humid air of the rainforest with a sonic presence that makes his small 100-gram body feel as large as the forest itself. Notice how the temperature shifts as we move closer to the forest floor. In these highland habitats, which often sit at elevations between 1,000 and 2,000 meters, the bowerbird chooses his site with the precision of a climatologist. He often selects frost hollows, topographic depressions where the cooler, denser air settles at night. This choice is deliberate. A cooler microclimate, typically 2 to 3 degrees lower than the surrounding bush, helps preserve the freshness of his organic decorations. Consider the blueberry lily, known to botanists as Dianella caerulea. The bird collects these small spherical fruits because their deep indigo skins are rich in anthocyanins, pigments that are incredibly stable. By keeping them in the cool, shaded bower, he ensures their color remains vibrant for days. As you lie there, imagine that same coolness touching your skin, a gentle thermal blanket that encourages your muscles to soften and your internal temperature to drop in preparation for sleep. What's happening now is a silent, microscopic interaction between light and matter. You might wonder why the satin bowerbird's feathers appear so much more intense than a simple blue pigment could allow. The secret lies in structural color, or schemochromes. Unlike the red feathers of a cardinal, which are colored by chemical pigments called carotenoids, the bowerbird's blue is a physical phenomenon. The barbs of his feathers contain organized layers of keratin and air pockets that are exactly 150 to 200 nanometers wide. This specific spacing causes constructive interference, where only the blue wavelengths of light are reflected back, while others are absorbed. It is as if each feather is a biological prism tuned to the frequency of the sky. This structural color is permanent. It never fades, remaining as vivid 20 years from now as it is tonight. Deep within the bird's eye, the sensory experience reaches a peak of scientific curiosity. Scientists have identified 4 distinct types of single cone cells in the bowerbird's retina, each containing a different oil droplet that filters light. One of these, the UVS, ultraviolet sensitive cone, has a peak sensitivity at approximately 365 to 370 nanometers. This allows the bird to see a 5th color that humans can only imagine. When he looks at the green fruits of the Solanum genus, favored by the fawn-breasted bowerbird, Chlamydera cervini ventris, he doesn't just see green, he sees a shimmering ultraviolet aura that signals the fruit's ripeness and nutritional value. The bower becomes a glowing cathedral of information, a place where the scent of rotting fruit and the texture of smooth stone are integrated into a singular, survival-oriented map of beauty. Consider the paint the bird applies to his walls. This substance is a complex biopolymeric suspension. Through chemical analysis, researchers have found that the saliva used as a binder is rich in mucopolysaccharides, long chains of sugar molecules that provide incredible adhesive strength. When mixed with charcoal or the pulp of crushed berries, it creates a waterproof coating that protects the twigs from the 80% humidity of the rainforest. The tool he uses for this application is often a small, flat piece of bark, carefully shaped to be exactly 2 to 3 centimeters long. This is a deliberate choice of leverage and surface area. As he paints, his heart rate, which normally sits at about 150 beats per minute, can spike to over 400 beats per minute during the intense focus of the display. This surge of energy is a testament to the visceral, physical nature of his art. At this very moment, we can observe the flame bowerbird, Siriculus ardens, whose plumage reflects light in the 600 to 700 nanometer range, the brilliant reds and oranges of a dying star. His display is not just visual, but thermal. In the cool of the New Guinea evening, the intense movement of his wings during the wing flip display generates a localized increase in body temperature. The friction of the feathers and the rapid muscle contractions create a tiny pocket of warmth in the damp air. Imagine that warmth now, moving through your own limbs, a soft, radiant heat that follows the path of your blood, calming your nervous system as it passes. Notice the texture of the gesso, the floor covering of the great bowerbird, Chlamydera nuchalis. In a 2010 study, it was found that these birds arrange their ornaments so that they are 10 to 15% more uniform in size than a random distribution would allow. They are essentially fighting the second law of thermodynamics, which states that systems tend toward disorder. By imposing this strict geometric uniformity on the forest floor, the bird creates a visual quiet that allows his own iridescent body to stand out. It is a biological version of the white noise you might use to drown out the world. The bower is a space where entropy is paused, a sanctuary of order in a world of wild growth. Scientists discovered that the brain of a bowerbird consumes nearly 20% of its total metabolic energy, a ratio identical to that of a human. This high energy cost is the price of creativity. As the sun sets and the light fades beyond the 400 nanometer threshold of visible color, the bird's metabolic rate begins to drop. He enters a state of nocturnal rest that mimics torpor, where his internal systems slow down to conserve the energy he will need for tomorrow's renovations. Your own metabolic rate is currently mirroring this descent. Your neural pathways are recalibrating, clearing cellular debris, and strengthening the memories of the day, much like the bird's hippocampus processes the locations of his hidden treasures while he sleeps. Picture the alignment of the bower once more. Research indicates that approximately 75% of bowers in certain regions of Australia are aligned within 30 degrees of a north-south axis. This isn't just about light, it's about the magnetic field of the Earth. Many birds possess cryptochromes in their eyes, specialized proteins that may allow them to actually see the Earth's magnetic field lines. The bower is anchored not just to the soil, but to the very planet itself. It is a structure built in harmony with gravity, magnetism, and light. As you rest, feel yourself being anchored by these same invisible forces. You are held in place by the weight of the atmosphere and the pull of the Earth's core, a steady, unchanging embrace that requires no effort from you. The scent of the forest at night is a complex chemistry of terpenes and water vapor. As the humidity rises above 90%, the structural colors of the bowerbird's feathers actually become more saturated. The water molecules in the air act like 1,000 tiny magnifying glasses, enhancing the interference patterns of the keratin layers. The bird, even in the dark, is a masterpiece of physics. Banding studies, which involve placing small numbered rings on the bird's legs, have proven that these masters can maintain the same bower site for over 20 consecutive years. This long-term dedication creates a cultural memory in the forest. Younger males visit these ancient sites, learning the specific dialects of song and the preferred arrangements of stones. Think of your own life as a series of refined arrangements, a bower you have built through years of experience and choice. Tonight, the walls of your sanctuary are strong. The colors have been curated, the sounds have been softened, and the temperature is exactly where it needs to be. The 10 to 12% of the bird's mass, that is feathers, is now still, folded against his body for warmth. The brain that spent the day calculating symmetry and ultraviolet reflectance is now subsiding into the restorative silence of the comforting void. There is a profound beauty in the why of the world. The blue is not just blue. It is a miracle of light interference. The song is not just a song. It is a feat of dual voice harmony. The bower is not just a pile of sticks. It is a defiance of entropy. Understanding these mechanics does not strip the forest of its mystery. It deepens the resonance of the silence. As the last of the blueberry lilies lose their ultraviolet glow in the total darkness of the Arfak night, the bird is safe. He is a part of the Earth's slow, rhythmic rotation, a passenger on a journey through the celestial velvet. You are that same passenger. The physics of rest are now taking over, guiding your heart rate down toward that steady nocturnal rhythm of the forest. The molecules of your body are settling into their most stable, peaceful configuration. Everything is balanced. Everything is aligned. The gallery is quiet. The curator is asleep. And the night is a perfect symmetrical masterpiece. The forest has reached its point of ultimate equilibrium, a state where the metabolic hum of the day has slowed to a soft, rhythmic vibration. As we begin our gentle return to the source of all things, let us observe the final, gradual processes that define the bowerbird's life, not as a series of events, but as a slow, unfolding cycle that mirrors the rotation of the Earth itself. The life of the satin bowerbird, Patillonorhynchus violaceus, is a masterclass in patience. A story that begins long before a single twig is ever placed in the soil. Picture the life of a young male as a gradual 7-year transformation. For the first several years of his existence, he carries the olive-green plumage of his mother, blending into the canopy as he watches and learns. This is a time of observation. Scientists discovered that these young apprentices often visit the bowers of established males, standing at the periphery of the court to observe the older master's techniques. What's happening now is a step-by-step transfer of culture. By his 4th year, the young bird begins to practice his building. It is a clumsy process at first. He may only gather 10 or 20 sticks, and his avenue may lean or collapse under its own weight. But he persists. Over the next 3 years, he slowly refines his spatial awareness. A cognitive development supported by a hippocampus that is physically expanding, up to 15% larger than non-building birds. To accommodate the vast amounts of environmental data he must memorize. As he approaches his 7th year, a remarkable physiological process begins. The green feathers of his youth are shed in a gradual molt, replaced by the structurally complex iridescent blue-black feathers of an adult. This change is governed by the slow release of hormones that signal his readiness to participate in the ancient Miocene ritual. Each feather takes roughly 15 to 20 days to fully grow, pushing through the skin as a pin feather before unfurling into a deep indigo vein that reflects light at a wavelength of 350 to 400 nanometers. This is the moment he steps onto his own stage, a transition 7 years in the making. Notice how the seasons govern this process with the steady precision of a celestial clock. In the southern hemisphere, as the sun moves toward the Tropic of Capricorn and the days lengthen in September, the male begins the construction of his bower in earnest. The first step is the clearing of the court, a process that takes several days of intense labor as he removes every leaf, every stray stick, and every blade of grass until only the bare, dark earth remains. Then comes the foundation. He plants hundreds of thin twigs into the soil, creating 2 parallel walls that stand between 20 and 30 centimeters high. These walls are almost always aligned on a north-south axis, a positioning that ensures the morning and afternoon sun will strike his iridescent chest at the optimal angle for visual display. Once the structure is sound, the decoration phase begins, a daily, step-by-step curation. He may fly up to 4 kilometers in search of a single blue item, perhaps a rare lobelia flower, or a discarded scrap of blue glass. Scientists have documented that a successful male will maintain a collection of over 100 blue items, which he rearranges with obsessive care every hour of the day. This is the transfer effect, a concept first described by E. Thomas Gilliard in 1956, where the bird's physical evolution is replaced by his architectural skill. The bower becomes his external genome, a physical map of his health and intelligence that he offers up to the forest for judgment. When the female finally selects a mate, a new process of creation begins. She leaves the bower behind, flying to a site roughly 500 meters away to build her own nest, a shallow cup of twigs and leaves placed high in the fork of a tree. This is a solitary journey. Over the course of 19 to 24 days, she incubates her 1 to 3 eggs, her heart beating at a steady, resting pace as she shields her future from the elements. When the chicks hatch, they spend 18 to 21 days in the nest, fed on a diet that is 80% fruit, supplemented by insects for protein. This gradual growth is the pulse of the forest, a slow biological ticking that ensures the lineage will continue for another 30-year lifespan. As the breeding season concludes in late December, the bird enters a phase of winter wandering. He abandons the bower, joining large flocks that roam the canopy in search of the fruits of the Elaeocarpus and ficus trees. This is a time of restorative rest, a period where the high-energy demands of the display are replaced by the quiet necessity of foraging. The forest itself seems to breathe a sigh of relief as the heat of the Australian summer fades into the cool dampness of autumn. The twigs of the abandoned bower begin to decay, returning their carbon and nitrogen to the soil, where they will feed the very trees that will provide the sticks for next year's gallery. As you lie here, feel your own body entering its final phase of the day, a step-by-step descent into the restorative silence of sleep. Consider that you are a part of this same grand evolutionary story. The calcium in your bones and the iron in your blood were forged in the hearts of dying stars billions of years ago. The same stars that once provided the navigation for the ancestors of the bowerbird during the Miocene epoch. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself through the lens of a quiet bedroom. Every atom of your being is in a state of rhythmic vibration, a subatomic dance that is as constant and reliable as the bowerbird's north-south alignment. The gravity that holds you to your mattress is the same gentle force that keeps the bowerbird's stones on the forest floor. It is a comforting pressure, a universal embrace that reminds you that you are anchored, safe, and exactly where you need to be. The complex chemistry of your brain is now shifting, clearing the metabolic residue of the day, just as the forest floor is cleared of debris before the first twig is laid. Your thoughts are becoming lighter, more fluid, losing their sharp edges as they merge with the soft indigo textures of the night. We are bringing our observation to a gentle, comforting halt now. The bower is finished. The bird is at rest. The forest is silent. The ultraviolet glow has faded, leaving only the silver light of the stars to watch over the canopy. You are drifting into the comforting void, a space where time does not exist, where there are no tasks to complete and no galleries to maintain. In this space, you are simply a consciousness floating in a sea of velvet peace. Allow these affirmations to settle into your spirit as you move into the depths of rest. I am anchored by the steady rhythm of the earth. My breath is a slow, symmetrical dance of light and air. I am safe within the architecture of my own peace. Like the bowerbird, I have completed my work for today. I release the need for order and surrender to the soft silence. My body is a sanctuary of warmth and repair. I am made of stardust, and to the stardust I return. The weight of the day has evaporated into the cool night air. Every cell in my body is settling into its perfect, restful configuration. I am a part of the slow clockwork of the cosmos. The forest is quiet, and so am I. My mind is a clearing, open and still. I am cradled by the gentle gravity of the universe. There is nothing left to do but breathe. The dark is a velvet blanket, soft and inviting. I trust the wisdom of my body to find its way to sleep. I am a passenger on a journey through the infinite stillness. The symmetry of the night is absolute. I am peaceful. I am resting. I am home. The images of the blue glass, the silver leaves, and the lilac eyes of the bowerbird are fading now, replaced by the formless beauty of the dreamscape. The temperature of the room is perfect. The silence is profound. The journey is complete. The 20 million years of history, the complex physics of light, and the rhythmic pulse of the rainforest have all led to this single, quiet moment. You are free to let go. You are free to sink. You are free to disappear into the comforting embrace of the void. The forest has closed its eyes. The curator has found his roost. The stars are in their places, and the rotation of the world continues in its silent, perfect orbit. You are exactly where you belong. Good night.